Declaration of interest. Naming of the committee. It's on page 11 for those of you who have.
Kia ora anō. Another simple but symbolically powerful matter is set out in this report, that is setting the name of the committee. I'm not sure if there'll be any particular questions about this, but there may well be some comments from the floor for the chair.
That the name Rangitāne or Manawatū committee be confirmed for this 2019-2022 triennium. Kia ora. Anyone have no problems with that? All those in favour? Aye.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm quite happy to move that.
Sorry.
And I think Danielle was happy to second that.
Aroha mai. We do it a little bit different at Horizons, but that's fine. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposition? No. Public participation at the meetings? Any?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the new triennium, each committee of Palmerston City Council receives a report similar to this one. What it does is, as a standing committee, the Rangitāne or Manawatū committee will operate under the guidelines of our standing orders. And we have a standing order that allows a committee to decide whether or not it has a public comment section set aside in each of their agendas. So the recommendation set before you here is that the Rangitāne or Manawatū committee would also be open to public comment.
Anyone got any questions?
Just through the chair, I just want to seek clarification that it would be only in relation to the work of this committee. I wouldn't like a public participation forum to become a forum where people are coming to make comments about what Rangitāne or Manawatū are doing in a wider sense. So I just think we need to be very mindful of that as we move forward. And my view is to try this process to see how it works. Trial it. Kia ora, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments?
Your permission, Mr. Chair, may I speak to the comment? You'll see on page 15, it sets out the detail of how this might happen in practice. So 3.2 states that it should be a matter that's on the agenda that the member of the public would speak to, and that it would be at the chair's discretion if it was outside of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation there that's on the screen.
Thank you. Any further comments? Well, let's vote on it then. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. Got it. Scope of the committee delegations and terms of reference.
This report on page 17, item 8, simply outlines the approach and the delegated authority of this committee, and it brings your attention in particular to the terms of reference of the committee, which you will find appended to the report on page 21. And to the focus of the committee, which is laid out really in 4.3, the work around Te Motu Pōtua, and identifies in section 5 matters that the committee may wish to discuss further.
Thank you. Any questions? Officer?
Mr. Chair, I'm very happy to move the recommendation that the committee note the report scope of committee's delegations and terms of reference dated the 29th of July 2020.
Executive Chris Ivan. Any further comments? I don't have much.
Mr. Chair, under next steps, there are some things that we're being asked to consider, including whether there would be any suggestions around changing standing orders, and also whether there would be any other reserves that the committee would be interested in investigating under that model. And I guess I'd just like to indicate that it would be really good if we can get feedback over time from the iwi committee members as to whether there are any changes that they would like to see made to more appropriately reflect the partnership in terms of the way that we operate. And I'm not sure whether that should happen today or in the future, but I just would like to indicate that that would be a valuable part of us considering how we move forward in an appropriate way to perhaps get that feedback over time from the iwi members.
Great idea. All those in favour say aye. Those against, the ayes have it. Interested in this one. Pōtua or Pōtua development given by Jason Ace Pickington, who I didn't recognise with a tie.
Tēnā koutou katoa, Mr. Mayor, Chair, councillors and leaders of Rangitāne. This is a great day. My name's Jason Pilkington. I'm a planner with the Parks and Reserves team. There are some councillors here that I haven't met before, and I'm deeply involved in the work that's happening down in the Manawatū river space. So that's where I'm coming from in relation to the presentation of this report today. If you'll remember, about 2 years ago, we began planning for the development plan at Te Motu Pōtua. And we started off with 2 workshops, and I believe we had them at the Esplanade Cafe. And we had Ruma and Wiramu, Chris, Danielle, and other members of Rangitāne at those workshops. And we used Alan Titchener, if you'll remember, and Philip Percy from Perception Planning, who's done quite a bit of work with us in the past to pull all that planning work together for us. They did quite a bit of work in that space, and it's, I believe, still valid work, even though it's a couple of years out. I don't believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that from what I'm hearing, much of the work that Rangitāne were thinking about in terms of that workshop process, that still remains pretty valid for that space. So the recommendation in this report is to pick that work up and resume it where it left off. So rather than starting again or anything like that, and to kick it off with a bit of a workshop just to bring new councillors up to speed and just refresh everyone's memory on where we're at. And we'd bring Alan and Philip back in for that. That's it. Any questions?
Has anyone got any questions? Russ, Jason? Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Jason, for the report. And obviously, there's been a bit of lag time from when you had that original workshop to today, and we totally understand why. So, will members of this committee and council get an opportunity to hear some of the plans, the discussions with the consultants as well?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate going into the 10-year plan. It's appropriate that we bring that to the council to workshop. I think that it's probably appropriate that we all do it together.
Yeah, and I totally understand and respect that Rangitāne might lead that discussion, but it'd be good to bring us on that journey as well.
Yep, sure.
Yeah. Thank you. And also, for Mr. Chair, one more. The land on the diagram there on page 26, that includes the land that we purchased at the entranceway there to Cliff Road from the private ownership.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. So that sort of entranceway there includes all of that. It's quite a big bulk of land, isn't it?
That's correct. And we should note too that when we workshopped this, that land wasn't on the table at that time. So this kind of opens things up a little bit more too.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. The budget that we have for the planting and landscaping work, we have a financial envelope to enable this to carry on through our council budgets?
Yes, we do. So we've got reserves management planning and a reserves development planning budget that ticks over each year out to about 2025, I believe, with the square being the last reserve management plan on the.
Just further to that, part of the discussions is because of the delays in forming the committee was that the work of the committee in planning should be something that if that envelope or the scope of the works was somewhat different to what had been in the past, that will be referred to your draft LTP process. The amount we've had previously has been carried forward over a number of years, but I think it's the opportunity, particularly with the additional land, to look at the scope, the aspirations, and therefore what that would cost as an LTP item.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Just through the chair, I fully endorse the recommendations, and I'd just like to acknowledge the great work that Jason has done in this space, and he's done in many other spaces for council and for Rangitāne, because the things that we're starting to see appear in the city, and in particular along the Manawatū River, have been from the likes of him and his team and Kathy and the others who've really taken on board our aspirations and our dreams and our visions. And together we're giving reality to those dreams and aspirations. And I think we should all be glad to see that, you know, this is going to increase tourism opportunities within our city, bring revenue to the city and create a greater sense of pride for our city. So it's a pleasure to be working with your staff at that operational level. And I'd like all you councillors to be aware of that.
Makes a big difference when it's someone easy to work with. Thank you very much for that, Daniel.
Mr. Chair, I'd be quite happy to move both recommendations, number 1 and number 2, around Te Motu o Potoa development plan. Yeah, I'm quite happy to move those. As a seconder.
Second it. Thank you. Any other comments?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't mean to hog, but I just would like to make the comment, and a little bit following on from Danielle, was around aspirations and the significant site. I was in Rotorua just recently, and as we know, that city and that region is the home for New Zealand tourism, although Queenstown thinks it is, but actually it's Rotorua. But part of that is the cultural experience that that can be had in that city. And look, the cultural experience and opportunities for Rangitāne in the city of Palmerston North around tourism, around profile, not only the pride and revenue opportunities, this site offers that in abundance. It's historically significant for Rangitāne. It has the best view in our city. It has fantastic views of not only Te Apiti, Mount Ruapehu, but also the Awa as well. So I do think we've got some real opportunities here collectively, and I would love to think and say 3 to 5 years' time that this development plan starts to come to fruition. So I'm very much in favour of the recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Now, committee work schedule, is it?
As you can see, we're on top of all the items. Probably like to propose that we, in accordance with the terms of reference as well, we provide an ongoing periodic update on the last item. I would suggest probably 6 monthly.
Yep. All right, I'll go ahead and move the recommendation there.
Mr. Chair, I'm quite happy to second that.
6. Development plan. Any further comments? No. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, the ayes have it. All right, I declare this part of the meeting closed, and someone was going to go down and get me a proper cup of coffee, because I'm not too sure about your coffee up in here, but I'm sure it's great. But we'll just declare our meeting closed. Kia ora.